My name is Nathan Haug from the Kankakee Public Library. We are here with Stephen Case, who is the author of First Fleet, and we are very excited to have you here. Thanks for getting in a car with a complete stranger.
You're welcome.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up? And what got you into writing books?
Sure. Well, I grew up in Flint, Michigan, just outside of Flint.
Okay.
Right. So it's fitting that I'm in a car. It is a Subaru though, but it was, Flint being a big GM town once upon a time. And what got me into writing? So I remember my dad would read science fiction when I was young, and I remember, you go to a bookstore and you pick up just a random science fiction book and you look at the cover, right? The covers are usually so interesting, like the artwork on the cover. And I remember just like looking at his books. I was too young to read, like looking at the covers of the books and thinking like, what could these possibly be about? Asimov and Arthur C. Clarke and Werner Vinge. So I always grew up interested in science fiction, and then I went to school and studied science. I got a master's in physics, taught at Olivet for a little while, taught astronomy, went back and did a PhD in the history and philosophy of science. And it was in graduate school that I started writing short stories, writing fiction, kind of as a way to not go insane, I think, while I was,
I understand that.
Working on the dissertation and projects and things like that. And then started submitting, made some sales, sold a few more stories, and then finally kind of fell into writing a novel. I sort of wrote it, I don't want to say I wrote it accidentally, but I kind of wrote it accidentally. And that's First Fleet, and that's my first science fiction novel.
What was your inspiration behind the storyline and the characters? Was there any, family members that really inspired your characters, or any personal?
Probably. So the germ of the story itself, it started off as a short story, and it was a short story that was written for a specific anthology. There was an anthology that was going to be stories inspired in the tradition of H.P. Lovecraft, right? So this really creepy early 20th century science fiction author, and sort of like it was science fiction that was inspired by Lovecraft, and so I wrote this short story for this anthology, and it was rejected. It didn't get into the anthology, as many of my stories are. That's what, when you're writing, you get used to getting lots and lots and lots of rejections from different magazines. But eventually it was picked up by a different magazine, and so it became the short story, and it was sort of creepy, sort of dark. But the nice thing about a short story is you can just kind of write it and like pose a riddle or pose a puzzle, and you don't really have to. You don't have to necessarily answer it, right? You can just kind of leave it there. And then I got in touch with a friend who was working with a producer in California, and they wanted to start publishing science fiction. And so she said, well, my friend Steve, he publishes some stuff, and he said, send me some of your stuff. And so I sent them some different things, including the short story. He said, this is what we want. We want you to build a novel off of this short story. So that's what I did. Okay. So then trying to go back and actually figure out the answer to the riddle that I had posed in this short story. And
retracing your steps almost.
It was fun. It was a lot of hard work, but it was a lot of fun. I
bet. And it's a 4-part series, is that what I've understood? Or is it I thought I was reading that there was like, I looked it up on Amazon, they're like, there's, what was it? One was called like Bones.
Yeah. So what they did was, in the proud tradition of, I don't know, like Charles Dickens and all those authors who like serialized their novels, right?
Yes.
That's what they wanted to do. They were going to serialize. So basically what they contracted me to do was write 3 novellas with the short story to start. So the short story was Bones, and that was kind of the teaser. And then there were 3 separate novellas. And those were released sequentially over a period of maybe a year or so. And then they bundled them all together. And if you search Amazon, if you go and get First Fleet, the novel, it's all 4 of those together.
Okay, yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Very cool. So what about, you got 4 kids?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
How old are your kids?
Let's see, we have our oldest, they're 9, and then we have a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old.
All girls?
Nope. We have 3 boys and 1 girl.
Okay. And do any of your characters, do you write, describe your characters with the traits of your children at all in mind, or is it completely just made up?
That's a good question. I think you probably, when you're writing, you're drawing on really everything you can. There's a set of twins. There are two. The protagonist has twin daughters, so they kind of factor into the book.
Okay.
One of the things my mother-in-law asked me when I was writing the book, she was like, "Is it going to have some strong female characters in it?" And I was like, "I am surrounded by strong female characters. Like, I don't know another kind of female character." So I would say, maybe there's a lot of my wife in the book, especially in the character of Becca. So the story really follows these two women. There's Becca, who's trying to figure out what happened to her sister. Her sister was aboard the First Fleet, and really a lot of the narrative is trying to figure out what horrific thing caused the disappearance of the First Fleet. And so Becca is sort of trying to figure out what happened to her sister, and then there's Cam, who's a mother. Cam lives with her husband and their kids, and she's just trying to stay out of the way of this whole mess. And she's trying to protect her family and protect herself from this kind of interesting past that's starting to catch up with her. Maybe, I'm sure there are bits and pieces of people around me in those different characters, but it wasn't conscious. I didn't say
It was a subconscious thing that you may have not even knowingly done, and you go back through and read it a few years later, like, wow, that sounds a lot like,
Yeah, I would probably go with that.
Very cool. And how long has the book been available for now?
Let's see. I'm trying to think. Maybe close to a year.
Okay.
I can't remember when Bones was first released. I think it was FantasyCon last year that I was there promoting it, and we had Bones and maybe the first 2 novellas out.
Okay.
So maybe the whole thing was available like in October or something like that. I can't recall.
And will the book be available when you come to speak?
Yes, I will have copies.
Yeah, I will definitely be
for
picking up
purchase.
a copy then for that.
Great.
That's kind of in my wheelhouse. I've really been. It's funny. The older I've gotten, the more of a science-y sort of superhero nerd I've become.
Right.
I was always such,
Working at the library probably helps.
Oh yeah, I'm a character out of The Big Bang Theory.
That's right.
I'm a living embodiment of Sheldon Cooper.
Okay.
But yeah, it's funny. The older I've gotten, I've grown, more out of my athletics and just always playing sports stage.
You've finally grown up.
I've grown up and grown down. It's like a horror story from Tom Hanks in Big or something along those lines. But yeah, it's really in my wheelhouse, and looking forward to reading the book.
Great. Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say maybe more than characters. If people were asking what I pulled into the novel, I pulled in a lot of science, or at least pseudoscience. Right?
Okay.
So with my background, I wanted to do some interesting things about artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
There's some quantum mechanics, no equations or anything. I know enough quantum mechanics you can kind of wave your hands and say some interesting things.
Is that what cosmic horror is? Because I've never heard that term before until I read the description of your book, and it categorized it as cosmic horror.
Cosmic horror. It's interesting because I don't write a lot of horror. I write and publish science fiction. Lots of fantasy stories have been published, and this might be the only piece of horror I've written. I think if you're familiar with H.P. Lovecraft, that's definitely like cosmic horror, right?
Okay.
Just sort of looking at how terrifying and unfathomable space is.
Yeah.
Right. Something that H.P. Lovecraft was really good at trying to describe things against which your mind would just not be able to comprehend, and just sort of recoil in horror. But maybe also along the lines of things like Alien, I've never seen the movie, but Event Horizon, is that the sort of older horror, sci-fi horror movie?
Okay. That thought of just being so alone in space, that's definitely. I think that's terrifying to anybody if they really look into it.
Sure.
I've been breaking out my brother's telescope. He let me borrow the last couple of nights.
Okay.
And just looking up at the stars and at the moon, and just realizing, I'm looking at something, through a couple $100 telescope, and at how big the moon. It's just it's terrifying when
the first time I show students the moon through a telescope, or the moons of Jupiter, and especially the rings of Saturn. You invariably kind of get that response.
Yes. not knowingly was looking at Jupiter and its moons, and I said, wow, that's a bright star, let's look at that one. And,
right.
And we took a look at it, and then I had asked my brother the next day. He goes, no, that's Jupiter. I said,
that's right.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it just hit me all of a sudden, like, wow, that's really neat. That's something to really hold on to, you know. I mean, I haven't seen anything else other than the moon and Jupiter so far in the last week. But yeah,
especially from in town, it's hard to see anything that's not bright.
Yes, yeah. Fortunately for me, I live sort of on the outskirts of Bourbonnais, behind Aurelio's, so it is a little darker out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, the more construction that's going on, the more light pollution we're getting, and it's unfortunate, but nothing a quick 5-minute drive out to the country can't fix. That
is one thing that we're really lucky with. We're not too far from the country.
Yeah.
I like to I write the monthly astronomy column in the Daily Journal, and one of the things that I talk about a lot is, okay, what are some of the really bright objects that you can see pretty easily from your own front yard here in Kankakee? So I like to talk a lot about different double stars that you can see at different times of the year, where it looks like a single star, but you look at it through your telescope, it's actually a double or maybe even a multiple star. And sometimes it's really neat because you'll have a color contrast. One of the stars will be this really vivid blue, and another one might be this really deep orange. And you don't see that at all with your naked eye. But you look at it through a telescope and you get this really vivid contrast. And those are nice because they're bright, they're fairly easy to find, and good targets for the light polluted sky.
Absolutely. Have you traveled anywhere outside of Illinois or the Midwest to go, to stargaze or do any studying or research?
Yeah, I've been. I'm always a little bit embarrassed in how little experience I have in truly dark skies.
Okay.
I've traveled different places for my research. I've taught. I actually just got back from a trip. We were in Italy. I was teaching in some different cities in Italy, but never like going out to a research observatory and looking under really, really dark skies. Not yet. No.
Is there any places on your bucket list that you want to go explore?
I applied to be part of a team of astronomy educators that went to Chile to see some of the observatories up in the mountains there. Just, pristine, very dark, very clear skies. And I didn't get it this year, but I would love to do something like that. I think that would be really neat.
Yeah, I moved back here. I moved here from Seattle. I was born and raised here, but I moved from Seattle, and I was about 2 hours north of the city. So I was in a small, kind of like a suburb that's very far secluded, but everything out there, every town is secluded by mountains and hills, so you don't get a lot of light pollution.
Right.
And out there, I mean, you could look up every night, and it just amazed me to look up at the sky each night. And
how long did you live in Seattle?
I was out there for a total of about 6 years.
Okay.
And I bounced around. I was out on the Olympic Peninsula on the most northwest part, and then I went 2 hours north of Seattle. And in between, I was back and forth between Virginia and New Jersey and different places like that.
All right.
But yeah, out there, I mean, it absolutely amazed me, especially even being out on the water at night.
Sure.
How dark it was out there, because everything is so natural still.
Right.
It's not very industrialized, like the south suburbs of Chicago are. And
sure.
That was, those were some great nights out there looking at stars.
Huh, that's neat.
And on top of that, you had, it's the biggest, what do they call it? It's the biggest natural sanctuary for killer whales out there is where I was at too.
Wow,
so,
yeah.
You can go see whales during the day, stars at night. I mean, you had the best of both worlds out there.
That's neat.
Yeah. So I hear you are a Transformers fan.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Grew up with the
cartoon.
The cartoon, and especially the 1986 animated movie.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Were you a fan of the Michael Bay movies?
Nope.
No.
Nope. I am a big fan, though. I think the coolest thing going on for Transformer fans right now is IDW Publishing.
Yes.
Picked up the franchise, and they're doing the comics.
Okay.
And they have 2 series running, and they have this one series that's written by a guy named James Roberts.
Okay.
It's just called More Than Meets the Eye, and it's doing. It makes me so happy because it's doing legitimate science fiction with the Transformers.
Yeah.
It's not just, blowing things up and running around. It's saying, look, here's this race of robotic life forms that have been at war for millions of years. What would that actually look like? And like telling compelling stories with it.
Yeah.
The artist is I'm completely blanking on the artist's name, but he does an amazing job. I actually got an interview with both of them. I got them because I was reviewing each trade paperback of More Than Meets the Eye that came out, and on my blog. And then I got them through Facebook. I got them to sort of do an interview where I'd ask them some questions and they'd answer, and I posted that to my blog. So that was really neat. But legitimate science fiction in the Transformers universe. And
that's interesting. Yeah, that's definitely a different take compared to Michael Bay's blow it up and throw Shia LaBeouf and Megan Fox. Granted, I'm a fan of Mark Wahlberg, but
I still haven't seen the fourth one. I just haven't even gotten around to the fourth one.
Save yourself some time.
Okay. See, that's kind of what people tell me.
Unfortunately, as big of a Batman fan as I am, I've been telling people, save yourself some time and don't go see Batman versus Superman.
That's what I've heard as well. I haven't seen that one either.
It's definitely worth waiting for, getting it on Netflix or something along those lines. I mean, I am a diehard Batman fan. Okay. But, for 2 hours and 50 minutes in the movie theater, that was a little much.
I have to introduce you to my brother-in-law because he's a big Batman
Is he?
fan. Yeah.
Yeah, me and myself and Steve, our director, he loves the old Adam West Batman, so we always have good stuff to talk about. So,
nice.
We could do. Have you seen James Corden and his lip syncing? He's a late night talk show host, and he gets artists, Justin Bieber, Adele, different people like that in his car, and they go drive around. Except he prepares all their songs and knows every word to every song, and they
their
just,
songs,
to their songs, and they just drive around through downtown LA
singing.
It's very, very entertaining.
Was it someone did the same thing with like comedian? Was it Jerry Seinfeld who did like comedians in cars or something like that?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Except I don't have the fancy cars like he does.
That's right. He's a big car guy.
Yes, he is.
About that. Okay. So if you turn left here, I can swing you around.
Okay, perfect. So, you being a science fiction writer, having an imagination that is broad as space. I mean, you almost have to have a very, vast imagination in order to write stuff like that to make it believable. Is there anything, what's your thoughts on Bigfoot? Is that something that, I know.
Am I a skeptic?
Are you a skeptic? Yeah. What's your thoughts?
Right.
Let's hear it.
So, I'm pretty skeptical about things like, you call it like cryptozoology.
Cryptozoology, yeah, the study of unknown things.
Well, see, like on the one hand, right, the world's still pretty big, and so what is it like? Famously, giant pandas were considered to be a myth for a long time, or something like that. Conceivably, sure, but I am pretty skeptical. Usually the question people ask, especially since I teach astronomy, is extraterrestrial life. Okay. Right? So is there life out there? I'm very skeptical that we have been visited by intelligent life, right? Okay. That aliens would travel all this way to just do weird things to crop circles and stuff like that. Whether or not I think there's life elsewhere in the universe, I mean, that's a completely different question. I think the odds are pretty good that there's life somewhere in the universe. Things like Bigfoot, I guess I'd have to see. I'm a scientist, so I'd have to see evidence. I'm an empiricist. I want to see some solid evidence. Yep. But,
not just a bunch of fuzzy, out of focus videos and photos.
Yeah, I guess it's hard for me to believe that there'd be something like that still undiscovered. But at the same time, there's things we don't know about our own bodies, about our own universe that still are to be discovered. So
I'd have to say I think it's more. I'm more willing to believe that there is extraterrestrial life than there would be Bigfoot, only because the universe is. I mean, it's massive compared to
compared to the Pacific Northwest.
Exactly. Right? Exactly. Yeah, the Pacific Northwest is big, but it is not that big.
Right.
Lord knows how many.
Well, and there's so much weirdness that's just like sitting there for you to like look at, right? I mean, without needing to I mean, Stonehenge, for instance, right?
Yeah.
I was just reading something about that the other day, like how amazing that artifact is, and still no real clue who built it or why.
Right.
And you can go and look at that, and it's right there. And,
Yeah.
things like that are, to me, quite compelling.
Yes, I agree with you on that. That's
So, right in front of you, right there. That's Crazy Joe's
Crazy
Diner.
Joe's. I've been by there many times.
Yep,
And
it's worth a stop.
Okay.
You can get probably the best and cheapest breakfast in town right
Really?
there as well. Yeah, the heavy belly, right? It's like this piece of Texas toast with, I think, like sausage links on it maybe, and an egg, and then just bathed in gravy.
oh, that's
And it's
the magic word right there. It's gravy.
Yeah, and it's like for all day, and I think it's less than what you'd pay for a breakfast at McDonald's.
No kid.
Yeah, we lived in Mississippi for about
Okay.
2.5 years, and
Were you on the water, down by the Gulf?
no, we were in Oxford, Mississippi, so the northern part of the state. I was at the University of Mississippi,
Oh, okay.
and we liked it. We loved it. And if you're going to live in Mississippi, Oxford is a wonderful place to be.
Huh.
But we were ready to come back to the Midwest.
Yeah.
We're Midwesterners. And
Yeah, I missed it myself, and I mean, it gets old quick, but then as soon as you move away, I mean, every little place has its charm.
It does. Well, and there's something about, yes, it's very flat. It's incredibly flat, but when you're out driving in that, it's kind of nice.
It
and
is.
you get the sky is so big.
Oh yeah.
And just something that kind of that farmland has sort of this. I don't know. I like it. I like
Yeah,
Illinois.
I'm a fan. It's very nice. It's nice being able to drive and not have to worry about going off the side of a mountain compared to out there.
That's true.
Is your book, is it a frequent gift that you give? Oh, did we lose a shot there? Good call. There we go. And Steven's back with us. Do you like to give your book out as a gift, or is that, how many family members have received your book as a
Oh boy.
Christmas gift?
I haven't given the book as a gift to anyone.
No?
I would feel kind of silly doing that. That seems like it would be. I'm happy to promote it. I'm happy to talk
Yeah.
about it. I'm proud of it. But I don't know. It would seem kind of. What's the word I'm looking for? I don't think I'd want to give it to somebody as a
Fair.
gift.
Okay. That'd be like
I wouldn't want to make that assumption.
That'd be like me giving you a picture of myself for your birthday.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, look at this thing that I did. You should read it. It's great. Which I'll say. You should read it. It's great.
Yeah.
But
Hey.
I don't know. I haven't given it as a gift.
Have you ever been told you look like a celebrity?
So I roomed with a guy. I studied abroad one semester
Mm-hmm.
as an undergrad in Oxford, England, the other Oxford.
Okay.
And my roommate insisted that I looked like and I had the mannerisms of the main character from that 70s show, like the guy from that
Okay,
70s
yeah.
show.
Huh.
I don't necessarily see it.
I don't think I see that one
Yeah.
so much.
I
I noticed when you got in the car at a side profile,
Uh-huh.
not the sound of your voice or anything, or even your mannerisms, but just the color of your hair and the profile.
Uh-huh.
I was thinking Lucius Malfoy from Harry
Ooh,
Potter. Which
all right, there you go.
That's not a bad one. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm Team Slytherin.
Well, he was
so-
pure blood, right?
It's
so,
true.
I mean, that's,
Hey, it's a high honor.
That's
All right, Steven, I want to thank you for joining us in my little Subaru today.
Hey, thank you. It was fun.
And kids, don't ever get in a car with a stranger.
That's right.
You did.
Don't do that.
Wonderful.
But it was
Thanks,
fun to
Steven.
chat.
I appreciate
Good
it.
to meet you. Thank you.